Hello and welcome to the Magic is Real podcast. I am Shannon. I'm a psychic medium, and I'm the host of this podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical and spiritual with a focus on near death experiences and spiritual awakenings. I would love to ask, if you don't mind, if you enjoy this podcast and if you enjoy this episode, would you please comment below, like, subscribe, share, all those things that really help. It's a free way to support the podcast without having to do anything but press a button. Even if your comment is just a little bit of a little heart or an emoji, that helps so much. So thank you in advance for that. And thank you to all who have been commenting and engaging. I also love to know who's there. Today, I have with me Rochelle Vallese, who is an actor, a producer, a writer, more importantly, a spiritual person living in a human body. And I have Rochelle on today because I wanted to talk about her spiritual awakening, her spiritual journey, and her spiritual insights. She has a lot to share in that realm. I've watched her on a few podcasts and thought she would be a great addition to the guest roster here at Magic is Real. So, Rochelle, thank you so much for joining me today from right down the street, as it turns out. It's so nice to
Mm.
meet you.
Oh, hello, neighbor. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having
It's
me.
wonderful to have you. Uh, I would just like to talk about you and your background, whatever you're comfortable sharing about your upbringing as it pertains to spirituality or your spiritual journey. Just wherever you like to start. It's your story. I want to hear it.
So, well, I am from the East Coast. That's where I grew up.
Me
And
too.
oh, you did.
I'm a
Great.
Connecticut girl.
You're a Connecticut girl. No, I'm a Pennsylvania girl.
Close
P-
enough.
yeah. So, a lot of history there. I think that's why I chose that place for some reason. A lot of deep history. So ever since I was little, I sort of had that ability to see spirit. My first encounter was with my grandmother. When she fell ill, we brought her to the house, and I remember, I remember dancing for her to make her smile, and she eventually passed away of cancer. And she was the first one that came to me, like she was like physically there, and speak to me and let me know that, she was okay. And she, was still around and still with me. Um, that was my very first encounter. And I always, spoke to spirit guides and just, have an imagination as a child. But now as I look back on it, I believe I was talking to spirit guide. When I was little, I um I always wanted a dog. So I wanted a dog as my companion. So I started with an imaginary dog and I named the dog Slippers. And
That's
since he was
cute.
imaginary, he was able to slip in and out of anywhere I needed him to be, right? So as I look back on it, I think that that imaginary dog ended up being my heart dog, who passed away in 23, that I named Kai. And I just think that, in that time of being that little child to all the way as an adult, it took that full circle moment for me to be ready for this spiritual journey with this dog. And he came back to actually guide me, to get me on the right path, to get me, back where I was supposed to be. you know we take little detours here and
We
there.
sure do. That's part of the road. The road's not going to be straight. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so, I've had many encounters, supernatural, and otherwise, I've heard people across the veil. I've seen them. Um, Sometimes I wasn't quite often ready to always give back, like, in that mature space of, okay, how can I help you?
Yeah.
But some beautiful encounters occurred along the way. But I would say that breakthrough, Shannon, um, occurred one day. I used to go to Runyon all the time,
Hmm.
and I used to wake up at 6 a.m. and I used to do the mountain, and I loved going when there wasn't everybody there.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. Um, so I would do the whole loop, but when I got to the top, I would talk to my guides and I say, okay, if I wasn't working, if I didn't have to come down to the mountain and work, there was this one day that I was doing my meditation and got to the top and I was talking to my guides and I said, okay, what would you have me do next? And they said, you're going to go to the bookstore. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I said, what am I going to get at the bookstore? And they said, trust, you'll know. And so I said, okay. Now, back in those days, there was a beautiful bookstore, and you might know, Shannon. It's called the Bodhi Tree.
Mm.
And I don't know if you know this bookstore, but it's long and time running here. And of course, unfortunately, it's not around anymore. But I went to a full spiritual bookstore and I just looked around a little bit and I picked up one or two books and I felt it. And I was like, no. So you have to go in these things with an open heart and trust, right? So I turned on this turnstile, they had like this display. I turned the corner and I saw this book. It was called The Disappearance of the Universe. And I was like, I touched it and I felt it and I was like, oh, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And once I opened that book, it seemed to have really put me on the path of, okay, let's pay attention to all of these spiritual encounters you've been having prior, and let's listen up.
Yeah.
And really take spirit seriously. Not that I didn't before, but it was more of a focus then for me, you know instead of I always did talk to my guides and I appreciate them all the time. But I think this started me, and that was probably about 10 years ago or so. So it's been quite a while.
And what about the book
Mhm.
really resonated with you?
It taught me that this world is a dream, but there's a purpose to the dream. But really, true forgiveness of looking at yourself and taking responsibility for yourself and forgiving anything that occurs that might make you uncomfortable.
Hmm.
True forgiveness, that you have to take responsibility and forgive you, that it's not happening outside of you, that everything is happening within you, and that you are the projector and
Right.
you are the one that's creating the movie.
Mm. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about that from you when you talk about we are the ones that are creating the movie. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, we are all creators of our own story, I believe. And, we didn't just happen to land here, our spirit in a human body. We chose this. And so we come here to work on something. And so through the souls that help, I believe we set it up before we come. And I believe that we set up our journey now. I don't believe that from the perspective of the soul, we're saying, oh, we're going to come in and we're going to have this argument with this person or this dispute or this horrific thing happen, because I don't believe that it looks like that from the soul's perspective. It looks like that soul is jumping up and down and say, okay, I'm going to be the antagonist because it's going to help you so much.
Yeah.
And it just kind of looks different, right? And so that we go through this because, we're going to learn, forgiveness. We're going to learn, different things that, we're going to learn unconditional love. We're going to learn about grace. different things that we come to actually, patience, that we come to learn about. Um, so I think that, our story, happens from that seed. And then we come down and experience it. And everybody's journey is different and everybody's journey is important.
Hmm.
As I know that you talk about quite often. Um, so yeah, I think that's, really what that reminded me of,
Yeah.
that book.
Right. Now, when you were younger and you
Mhm.
had, I guess it's not really a visitation, but you were able to connect with your grandmother, how soon after she passed were you in connection with her?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. It wasn't, I would say it was in like a month.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, if you really want to know this story, about my
Yeah.
grandmother, like I said, I was kind of a sensitive child. And so this is very personal, but I'm going to put it out there because I want people to hear that, things are okay, but I want them to listen to their heart, listen to their gut, and listen to sometimes children because sometimes children get poo-pooed away or,
Yeah.
not heard as they should because they're still so open and beautiful, right? So, my grandmother, I didn't know my grandfather, so he was out of the picture. But my grandmother was getting remarried, and I did not like this person. I had bad vibes, and I was acting out. And I said, no, I don't want her to marry him. I don't want to go to the wedding, the whole thing. And so nobody would listen to me. I said, he's not a nice person.
Wow.
I don't want my grandma to be around him. And so they just thought that maybe it was just because I was a child thinking, oh, well, grandma's still going to be there. She'll still play with you. She's still going to hang out with you. But no, I just had this vibe about him. Well, she did marry him, and he was trouble. So he would drink alcohol and he would get violent with her. And so she would end up coming, my parents would have, or, my aunt would have to rescue her and, and have her come stay with us. Um, so, we were very close and, I was around her quite a bit. So I think she felt comfortable coming to me and knowing that I would accept it,
Yeah.
you know. But I still, for a while didn't say anything to my parents about it. I kept it quiet because I wasn't sure that it was going to be received. And then, years later, I found out, my mom was like, well, yeah, she came to me too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I had my mom's great aunt was a very powerful, had very powerful psychic abilities that she used to kind of scare people. But yeah, so yeah, you gotta just I guess, what I want to say is that don't be afraid of your innate power. We all have these abilities, and whether or not it's your journey to, use them in that way, where you're actually, giving readings or you're, channeling for somebody or whatever it may be, you still have them. You still have a gut. Listen to your gut. Because everybody's journey is different. You might not be able to get, everybody has talents to do everything, right? But you don't bring that through because you have a specific mission, and your
Yeah.
mission doesn't call for that specific
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah. And also to be so young and to have such a strong opinion,
Yeah.
that's right there, the perfect example because, most kids, I don't know. I mean, kids are extremely intuitive and extremely connected with the other side, but to be able to say, I don't like that man, when he hadn't shown you necessarily a thing specifically, took so much trust in yourself to be able to speak to that. And I don't even know I know that you would say that you didn't intentionally you weren't thinking about it, you were just feeling it, and you just said it, and you
Yeah,
spoke it aloud when it could have been when it probably wasn't received well, or if at all. Just sort of,
right.
yeah, she's just jealous because doesn't wanna lose her grandma's attention, but for you to know that at such a young age, I think that's really a s a statement, it's a really strong statement about how strong intuition is and can be, and I am curious too to know when your grandmother came to you after she passed, how did she appear to you? Did you see her? Did you feel her? Did you hear her? And were you surprised, or did it feel just natural to you?
Yeah, so she came to me by the few times, but how she first came to me was there was a cot next to my bed, and she was laying there, and she kind of had her one hand up on her face and her elbow. She was laying down, and she was just looking at me, and then I kept rubbing my eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, Grandma, how are you here, Grandma? And she would just smile at me,
Oh.
and you could just feel, her presence, her love, her warmth, her beauty, but she looked like she was right there.
Oh,
You
that's cool.
Yeah, and that was the first time. And she stayed with me throughout my entire childhood. Anytime that there was like, turmoil growing up or whatever, you're young and you're a girl and you're growing up and, teenage things happen or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
She would always show up and give me that peace, like everything's going to be okay. And it was
Yeah.
just kind of empowering, you know? And then sometimes it would be, I don't, I, my experiences generally are not dream oriented. They're mostly in the waking state.
Mhm.
I've had a few dream things, but they're mostly in the waking state where either it's the power of the mind and it comes into my mind of, there's the picture of it, or I'm hearing it, or, as she did the first time she appeared to me, which looked physical, looked like she was there in the room. But it's generally happens in those different ways, but I've had it happen several different times, and different in the different respects of, every medium.
Yeah, when spirit speaks to you, how do you know? And I'm asking this, I'm a psychic medium.
Yeah.
My son, we all are.
Yes, of course.
And so I'm going to refer to you as a medium since we all are. Even
Thank you.
if you don't practice it, it is one of your strengths and abilities. Uh, how do you know it's spirit as opposed to just a floating thought?
Yeah. Um, I can feel the power behind it, and I can it gives me peace. I'm generally I feel like I get on a different frequency,
Hmm.
and it just resonates with me like that.
Yeah.
It's just that knowing,
Yeah.
you know. Um, you can always second guess yourself. But if, but in the moment, if you say, okay, you know what, I'm going to quiet myself down for a second. How do I feel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people that too, that when they ask, "How do I know if it's a sign or just a coincidence?"
Yeah.
My answer is because you just know.
You
You
just,
have to trust it.
you, mm,
If you see a cardinal and your grandma comes to mind, it's your grandma. If you see a cardinal
percent,
just hanging out and you don't think anything about it other than what a beautiful bird, it's just a bird.
100% I agree with you.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
It's
It's
they
so
just come
true.
to mind. They you just think of them. That's the minute you think of them, they're there anyway. And I've learned to trust that, for example, in a reading,
Mhm.
if we if I'm saying there's first I know there's a woman here, that's to start, and they say, "Oh, my grandma just passed." And I'm like, "Well, it could be any woman, right?" But
Sure.
as soon as I say, "Well, if these things resonate as being connected to your grandma, then your grandma's already here because we've called her in by speaking her name or just by even thinking of her." So
Yeah.
whether or not I was right to begin with, like if I say there's a grandmother here, and they're like, "Yeah, my grandma passed." Is it mom's mom? Yeah. Okay, we got that. But could it be another? I mean, Could I have made that up because there's only so many family members to choose from that are probably on the other side? I
Right.
could say, well, anyone could get your chances are like 1 out of 8, that you're going to be correct. But
Yeah.
how do I know? Because I also know that once I say Mom's mom, she's here. She's like, oh, did you call me? And they're right there. Then the information starts to come in more readily. So I'm not always too worried about whether I get it right on the first. Like, I'm feeling this is somebody's aunt and I'm feeling, a name like Charlotte or whatever. But it's once we say the name, they're there anyway. So that's what's really cool is then the information really starts to flow because now it's like you said, you're tuning into that radio station and you're just
Yeah.
listening.
Yes,
You're
that's
aligning yourself with
exactly
that
right.
frequency.
Yes, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah.
Go ahead, please say what you
No,
were going to
no,
say.
no, no. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you find yourself having actual premonitions throughout your life? Or is it more just like you have a knowing of something? So if you're hanging out with somebody and all of a sudden you have a feeling, um, what's your, how do psychic abilities present to you
Mhm,
specifically? Because they do present very differently for all people.
mhm. Yeah, and I have a variety of ways that they present. I'll give you a fun story, and
I
it's
love
quick.
stories.
The fun story is I was meeting an actor because we were going to work on a film together. So we had a meeting, and I looked at him, and we're talking or whatever, and I had this strong feeling, and I couldn't get rid of it, and I didn't want to because I didn't know him.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to, be careful of the line you cross. But I
Yeah.
said to him, I said, "Do you do commercials?" And he said, "Yeah." And I go, "You're going to get a national commercial." And I get chills.
Mm. Validation.
Yeah. And I said, "It's going to be a really popular commercial." And he goes, "Okay." So he was not into this,
Yeah.
right? So I could tell. So I backed off and I just smiled. And so we did the project together. And uh, a month later or so, maybe it wasn't even that long, he contacts me and he says, "Will you vote for my commercial? It's the Doritos commercial. And we're, like close to winning." And they ended up winning, and it was a big national spot for the Super Bowl. And it was a really
Wow.
popular commercial.
That's so funny.
So it was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you don't do this professionally, do you?
No.
Is there, is it, you're just not interested in it at all? Is it just something that you're using in your life to sort of navigate waters? Is there, do you have an interest in doing it for a living?
Yeah, so I never really considered doing it for a living. I do use it throughout my life, and of course, if there's help that I can give people around me,
Yeah.
that I come in contact with, or or doing something like being a guest on your amazing show, that's just how I've thought of doing it. Now, I did think about maybe writing a book.
Hmm. Yeah.
With my experience with my dog Kai. But yeah, I just at this point, it's like I haven't like got clarity of exactly how that would look,
Right.
maybe. So I just let it go and see what
Hmm.
comes back to me.
Yeah. And you don't, and it's not for everyone to do the kind of
Right.
work that I do. Sometimes it's just being aware of it can really help you in your life. And I'd love to help hear from you some of the ways in which this understanding that this isn't all there is, that we live in a multiverse or whatever, and also just having those intuitive hits. How do you go through your life different? I would say I don't want to say differently, but using these abilities to your advantage, and how does the awareness of these abilities aid you in sort
Yeah,
of life's
so
journey?
so much. Okay, I'm going to tell another story,
I love stories.
and
Keep telling me.
I'm and I'm going to hope that it answers some of your questions. If not, we can
Hmm.
circle back. Okay, so I was on a retreat with my husband, and we went to visit friends, and they do this. They're clairvoyant, they're spiritual teachers. We went to Mount Shasta.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
and we were attending one of their workshops. And so they're dear friends of ours, and he's since passed, but we'll get to that. But so it was break time, and I know he gives so much. And we just came out of a meditation before lunch, and all of a sudden, I saw my uncle Ralph, who had just passed, oh, maybe 6 months prior or something. It wasn't that long. Anyway, he showed up, and I said, "Oh, hey, Uncle Ralph, nice of you to show up." And he goes, "I need you to go, and I need to speak with Michael." And Michael is the teacher who I'm telling you about, who is giving the workshop. And I said, "Oh, Uncle Ralph, this is me. Oh, Uncle Ralph, like, he's exhausted. I hate bothering him. He's just
Yeah.
teaching this workshop. I want to give him a break. Will you please go to talk to Michael and tell him I'm here?" And I said, "All right." So I went to Michael, and I said, "Michael," I said, "my Uncle Ralph is here." I said, "and he's insisting that I let you know." And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Is he the one with the dark curly hair, or is he the blonde?" And I go, "Blonde?" I go, "No, he's dark curly hair." He goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He's here with his son." And I said, "No." I said, "His son's alive." And he goes, "Oh no, no, that's his son." And I go, "Okay." He goes, "Anyway," he goes, "he said that he's doing fine, and him and his son are happy, and everything is good." And he says, "But that's not what he's here about. What he's here about is to tell you to get out of your way." He says, "And then what you're looking for will come to you." He says, "Because your guides are setting it up for you, but you keep getting in your way." So it's a good message for
Wow.
everyone, because I think we
Yeah.
all get in our way a lot, right?
Yes.
So I said, "Okay, that's great." That night, went back, and I called my mom, and I said, "Mom," okay, mind you, he described the blonde, he had blonde hair and light eyes, right? And I said, "Mom," I said, I'm, here in Mount Shasta," and I told her the story. And as I told her the story about, it was her sister, who was married to my uncle who had passed away, who came to me. Okay. I hope you can follow that.
I can. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I told her the story, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, Rochelle." She goes, "You have to tell your aunt the story right now." And I said, "What do you mean? Do you think she'll be open to receive it?" And she goes, "Well, she's here right now, and I think she's going to want to hear it."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I got chills just
Yeah.
telling you. And then so I told her the story. I said, "Uncle Ralph showed up to me, your husband." And I said, and when I went to, have a conversation, via my friend Michael, he was with his son, who has light hair and light eyes. And she just broke down in tears. And I said, "But everything's okay, and they're happy." And she goes, "Rochelle," she goes, "we had a baby." And she goes, "And it died."
Oh my gosh.
She goes, "And nobody knew. And it had light hair and light eyes."
Oh,
And that little boy, he was your uncle, felt so guilty about throughout his life about his death. And she said, "And before he passed, the last thing I said to him was, 'Go take care of our son.'"
oh,
And she goes, "And to know that they are together and happy," she goes, "did everything for me."
oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Wasn't that amazing?
Thank you for sharing. This is what I love these stories. Was it Michael Tamura?
Yes.
I just, as you said, Michael, I remembered seeing a connection between you and him somewhere, and I was researching you, and
Really?
he was on my show, and absolutely love that man in spirit, and,
Oh, yeah.
what a
Yeah. Maybe
beautiful
sometime
man.
you'll talk to his wife. She's amazing, and she's still
Oh,
doing carrying
yes.
out his teachings.
That's
Yeah, Raphael.
incredible.
Yeah.
It was and is a very special soul.
So powerful.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I remember seeing that you knew him and know him, which is really beautiful. Just such a beautiful soul who passed. Not so, it feels like yesterday, but I'm sure it's been a couple of years now. But that's
Yeah. It was October
oh
23.
God, see, that's what I yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a beautiful. That is so beautiful, and I think that's the gift is that we do have access to the other realms, and I think so many people think that this is just magical thinking, but the proof is in those moments. And
Ah,
it's not that we need to prove to anybody what we do. Like the Long Island medium always says, I don't care if you believe in mediumship. I just need to pass on this message to you. And so, even
yeah.
if you're not doing it for a living, we all
Yeah.
have the ability to communicate because we are energy. We are all part of the same source. And from what I have learned, I now know for sure that we never die. We only change
Mhm.
forms. So, tell me what you think, just from your studies, your experiences, what do you think is sort of going on here in terms of what are we doing on this in these bodies? What are we doing in these planets? Anything you want
Um,
to share about your worldview based on what you've learned and experienced?
yeah. Yeah. I think that, gosh, there was a beautiful quote that I wanted to read to you about that. Um, it was about how if we lose oneness, if we do, if all we know is oneness, and that beautiful space of love is who we are, which is what I believe we are, then you never know what true heaven is because you never know it's true grace. Because it's like you never went outside to
Yeah.
know that there's what else you could be or what else is out there, right? So it's a matter of being on the journey of life that saying, okay, here it is. If you don't experience,
Hold on, we froze. Let me just put
you can never truly know heaven's grace. There it is. Yeah.
okay, say that again because you cut out for a second.
Yeah. If you don't experience what it feels like to lose oneness, then you can never truly know heaven's grace.
Mm.
So, it's just it's a reminder to keep striving to and see the light shining again and again because love is constant, and you'll feel it's just this whole beauty of experiencing your true self again you know
Yeah.
I used to have I used to have this I know I've spoke about Kai a bit, my dog, who passed 1 month after Michael Tamora. And Michael Tamora actually helped assist him to the other side, but it actually my Kai passed on his wife Raphael's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of connection there with us.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was Kai and I used to play this game. My husband would when we would walk on weekends together, we would play this game of hide and seek, right? And I remember he reminded me that and I used to like hide behind cars, and he used to love like finding me. And you could
No.
see his like big smile, and he loved the game, right? And he would always to me, it's like when somebody dies, it's like everyone has gone hiding away, you know, and out of sight. But when you seek and you find, you'll see that they never left. You
Yeah.
know? And then it just then becomes a big surprise party with everyone laughing in joy because no one left. And we're all still right here in the oneness together, you know,
Yeah.
playing, you know. So, it's just like, you see the darkness and then the light comes through, and then our loved ones are right there waiting for you all along, you know. So to me, it's just a story, it's just a game, and everything outside of us is unreal. It's not real. It's just a projection of a game. And, and yes, of course, it can be very devastating and very ugly at times, but the real picture is the beauty that we are unconditional love, and we are all together in oneness and in love right here, right now, at every moment.
Yeah. And separation is an illusion.
Separation is an illusion. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And as you just touched on, grief is very, very real. We've all been there. We all will be there if we haven't already.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that that we can spiritually bypass the pain of it, obviously. And
Right.
nor should we.
Right. That's
And
exactly right.
exactly why I do this podcast, why I do mediumship work is to support people in knowing that yes, it's not going to replace a hug. It's not going to replace the
Mm.
child you lost. It's not going to replace your dog, cuddling with him and the silly things that he would do and the
Yeah.
interaction and all of that. His warm, fuzzy little body and, all those things are so real and important.
Of course,
And
without question.
yes, and also I always liken it to I'm a lucid dreamer. Even when I'm not lucid dreaming, I'm very vividly dreaming. And there's so many times where I'm in the dream and I'm like, okay, I don't like this part of the dream. It's scary. I
Mm.
just need to wake up. I just need to wake up. Just remember to wake up from the dream. And I
Mm.
think that even though this dream is tangible in this world, and I actually have "Life is but a dream" tattooed right here on my arm.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's I to remember that it's all important. And
yeah,
the love part of it is real. The love part of it is very real. And unfortunately, the fear part of it is very real. That fear is what drives people to do horrible things. Always. That's the
absolutely.
common denominator across the board. And also remembering that we will wake up into our real life again. And that
Yeah.
yes, the separation right now feels really palpable and really terrible, but also you will see Kai again, and
Yes,
not
for
that he's
sure.
not already here, but you'll
Yes.
actually feel him, his light, his love,
Yes.
whether if you each of you may not have physical bodies, but you will feel one. Because the
Yes.
only thing separating you from him is your flesh, is your bone, is everything that he's just in a higher vibration dimension
Mm.
and you're just in this dimension, but he's literally always right there. So can
Mm.
you tell us about your relationship with him now? Because I know he was a once in a lifetime dog for you.
Yeah.
And what is, because I think a lot of people will ask, well, do pets have souls? And absolutely they do. They come to me in readings all the time.
Oh.
They run. I'll be talking to someone, and suddenly a little dog will run across the my field of vision, or they'll reference something about a treat they liked, or a trip they took, or how they were buried, or something to validate, or what their collar looked like. So,
Yeah.
or that they had
Great.
like a tooth pulled or something like that, just to
I
validate.
love it. I
And
love it. Don't you think
yeah,
they want to be seen too? They did a lot of hard work with that while they were
yes,
here.
yeah, they are just souls in a different type of a body that didn't have the ability to use language. So I'd love to hear your stories about Kai in spirit and how hopefully that's helped you in your healing process.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this guy is really powerful, powerful, powerful. So, I used to speak spiritual speak to Kai, and I would read out loud, spiritual, literature and so on and so forth. So we kind of had that thing going on. And we would always go to the mountain. Fortunately, where I am, we have our own little Runyon. And, that's walking distance. Yeah, I'll have to tell you a
Yes.
secret place.
Yes, please.
And we used to do our little, nature there. He always reminded me to look up in the sky. I love the water. So he was a water dog, and it was the ocean, and he always would look up in the sky, which I think he thought was the ocean too. And he would
Oh.
love to, point out the birds and, everything. And he always wanted to be outside, which was great. So, reminding you to go back to nature. And Kai did not like devices. He would tell me about the computer. He would tell me about the phone. He didn't care for selfies. He didn't like any of that stuff. So he wanted to keep it real, right?
Hmm.
Just nature. But he has given us so many messages that he has been here. I mean, from turning on the television really loud at night to dismantle. Okay, there's a couple stories I'll share if we have time.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, please.
One is I was looking out the window, and it was my husband's home office. And so he used to lay in a bench outside that window. And so I was looking out there, and my husband says, this is after he passed, and my husband says, "Um, and I said, yes. My husband's computer went down. My husband's television turned off. All the lights in his office went off. The television upstairs was, but nothing else in the house went off. And we can tell that if it was a power surge, we would have had another clock that we have an old-fashioned kind of digital clock that we keep in our room. It didn't go off. And the clock in the kitchen, we have a little digital on the stove that didn't go off. So we knew it wasn't a power surge. It was just in the room that we were in that second. And then, when things went back on, those things never went off, and we never had to change, the clock. So it was like he was saying, "Yep, I'm right here. Remember."
Yeah.
He left a paw impression on our fifth step. So I have a paw is like
Hang on, this is breaking up. One second.
in the of the
Hold on one second. Let me put my hands up for
Can you hear
editing
me?
purposes because we
Yeah.
froze. I can hear it's a little choppy. I wonder why.
I don't know.
Ours is good. We'll just, oh yeah, just the begin to, so I can edit this. You had talked about the part you cut out just in the right before all the lights and everything started flickering. Can you just start from like that beginning of that story? Because suddenly you just cut out. And I think,
Yeah, so when I was looking out the window at a bench outside the window that he would lay in, my husband was working at his home office, and he said, "What's Kai doing? Are you watching Kai?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, Honey, he's always with us." And I said, "Yes, I do. I know he's here." And with that, all the lights went in the office went off. The computer went off. The television went off. Nothing else in the rest of the house was touched. It was just in the room that we were in,
wow.
and everything else remained. And it was just really a powerful statement to say, "You got it. You're
Yeah.
right. I'm right here," you know. And
Yeah.
he did this trick where for a month he would set off the smoke alarm at 2:32 in the morning, and he did it for a month, and he would space it 4 minutes apart. Okay. And you're going to say, "Oh, well, the batteries needed changed." We did
Yeah.
that. We changed the batteries. The light was always green, and it would still go off.
Wow.
And he did that for a month in the middle of the night. It was amazing. And it was always at that same time. It was amazing. And then he left his paw impression on one of the stairs in the wood. And then he's a funny guy, this Kai. Funny guy. So I used to make these gluten-free pancakes that we all loved. All right. So our neighbor had fallen off his roof. So he had a dog that needed walked. So I said, okay, we're going to walk that dog. So I said, oh, when we come home, I said, I'll make pancakes. And I used to, at the end of the batter, I would make a little pancake for Kai.
Oh,
And so um, I said, okay, that'll be fun. We'll do that. We go get the dog. We walk the route that we usually walked with Kai. And then we were laughing coming back to the house. And we were like, do you remember when Kai used to stick his head in the bushes and pull out food items? Like he would pull out like a pizza, like a piece of pizza or a burrito, and it's just like magic. Like anytime he wanted like either a tennis ball or a piece of food, he would manifest it.
yeah.
And so we were laughing about that. And I'm telling you, 5 minutes later, the dog we had with us, his name was Cash. He put his head in some bougainvillea and pulled out a stale old pancake. Where the heck a pancake would come from
Wow.
outside in a bush? I mean, you would think, okay, yeah, somebody having lunch, that was working or whatever would throw some food or whatever. But a pancake,
A pancake. It's too
yeah,
specific.
it's too specific and too
Yes.
weird. We were floored. We couldn't believe it. And then when I did actually go home and make the pancakes, the last one I made ended up, and I took a picture of it, turning into a heart.
Oh,
Just poured it normally and it turned into a heart. So you
oh,
can't deny these things.
no.
It's just there. I mean, it's he gave me so many signs like this. He was
Yeah.
really quite extraordinary like that. Very powerful, in his presence and in his being. Everybody loved him in the neighborhood. He was like the grand
Oh,
teacher. He was like the mayor of the neighborhood. Little dogs, children. He was the guy, and he was always kind of that Zen, master. And people would look at him, he's so Zen, he's so calm.
yeah.
Yeah. So
They're
just
such highly sentient beings.
yeah. Yeah.
Even just, I was dog sitting this weekend and it's for a doodle. And this
Oh
dog
yeah.
is so smart, like so, so sweet and so smart.
Yeah.
And it's funny how when I talk to him, he just tilts, like if I ask him a question, he's always tilting his head, trying to
Mm.
sort of like work out what is she saying? It's like they have the ability to communicate, they understand words. They're trying to figure out how you can tell he just wants to speak in full sentences and he's sort of expressing as I'm speaking to him and acknowledging what I'm saying and following it's like how they can learn to talk through those buttons because they do
Yeah, isn't that
understand.
fascinating?
Yeah,
Yes.
they understand what you're saying to them. They just
Yeah.
don't have the
The voice.
physiology to be able to speak it back to you. And so, animals are very much alive in the spirit world. I always wonder about bugs, though. Like, what's the purpose of like? I mean, I think they have to have souls because they have a soul. What do you think about that?
Sure. So what I've heard is like the bees and ants and stuff have one soul. They're all one soul.
That makes sense to
Yeah,
me
it's very interesting. That's what I've heard.
because they
So
have they have a purpose here in terms of
absolutely.
pollinating or eating other bugs or whatever or
Sure.
keeping populations down.
Sure.
But they're just more I feel like they're just they're sort of they have a small consciousness, but I it's not as developed as I think it's just our brains are our receptors, they're our antenna. So
Mhm.
our soul is able to perceive this world through our senses. And
Mhm.
animals clearly have the ability to. Some are just sort of more reactors than
Sure.
maybe communicators. But I
Yeah.
just
That's
came into,
just the
yeah,
that's just the and and they're serving that purpose, right? So
yeah,
yeah, so it's all just as important. It's just from our perspective, we see ourselves as being a more I wouldn't say supreme, but more have more ability to speak. But I'll tell you, I don't know, there was Kai passed, like in the few months leading up to it, we had a lot of animal energy come to us. We had a praying mantis in the house, and you look at those praying mantises, and they just look like little alien beings.
Oh, they're so
They're so
beautiful.
beautiful, and just like he was there for a message. He was
Hmm.
there because he was giving us a message. We had the dragonflies come to the window. We had a huge hawk land on our balcony and just staring at us inside the house. It was incredible. All these animal spirits started coming and showing up. Quite extraordinary, And then when Kai passed, um, before, we introduced Xena into our life this past February, it was, you know how the energy is just like sucked out of the house, because of
Yeah.
that same, presence. But a bluebird came, and the bluebird would come and eat out of our hand.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and he would show up, and every time I had this little Tupperware thing of nuts that I put in. I'll shake it, and I'll say, and I named it Blue, of course,
Hmm.
because he's
Yeah.
blue. And I call him Blue, Blue, and the bird comes like a dog.
Yeah.
And he'll come to the tree, and I'll say, Blue, I have seed for you. And he will come, and if I put that seed on the table, if he wants more, he'd come on the table and he'll peck at the little container. Like, okay, lady, I want more
Yeah.
seed. And, just speak that way. And it's incredible. And so now I leave the little seed on the windowsill for him, and he brings his ladybird.
His family. Yeah.
Yeah, and they come and have, nuts together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, animals are very alive. And like I said, they come to me all the time, almost every reading. If somebody had a pet, that pet's going to show up.
Yeah.
They're always so connected to us. And I'm glad that you know that as well, because I know missing him is difficult. And also, he is totally, totally at, at peace and happy and running and has his mobility back and all the things that he didn't have, which is like
Mm.
if his hips were difficult in the end and he couldn't walk. He's running down. He actually, you told me this, but he showed me running down a beach
Oh,
um, at full speed and a red ball, which I don't know if that's significant to you, but there was, I just saw the dog running across a beach with somebody throwing like a red ball to him. But there was a feeling of like I couldn't walk at the end and my hips were
definitely.
arthritic and like
Oh, for
just
sure.
carrying him, having to carry him to go outside. And it's like, even though he appreciates that so much, he's just so happy to not be
Yeah, he was
stuck
very
in that.
proud. He was a
Yeah.
very proud guy, and
Mm.
he tried to do everything himself
Oh, Bubba.
up until the end, and he made full circle around the property, and he went to every spot that he would inhabit that night before he passed. And like he was there's coyotes here, so he
Yep.
was on coyote watch, and he was concerned about the coyotes. And I'd had to say to him that night, it's okay. That afternoon before he got real sick, the night before he passed, he actually was able to like jog up the stairs. It was amazing. I
Wow.
floored. I couldn't believe it, with a smile on his face,
Oh,
so happy. And he ate all the way up until the end. He even drank the morning of his that he passed.
yeah.
I mean, he was like a superpower. It was incredible. Now he was a big guy too.
Hmm.
He was like 75 pounds or more. So, but he was really strong up until, he decided to leave his body. And you know what? And that night, I have to tell you, as much as you love somebody, you think, oh, please don't leave me. You know what I said to him? I said, no, this neutral mode where
Oh,
I,
wait, you cut out again.
okay,
You said, you know what I said to him? Start there.
you know what I said to him? I said to him that I am not going to keep you here. If it is your time, that is your freedom day. And I am not going to stand in the way of you being back, going back to the oneness and doing, whatever you need to do at this time. If this is the time, if this is your exit and this is, time for you. I said, you have given me everything and more. I said, our relationship has been above and beyond
Yeah.
anything I could have asked for or imagined. And I said, and I am just here for you. And so I wanted to give him that space to say, it's okay,
Yeah.
you know, it's okay that, it's time for this to happen. It has to come at some pass, right? We all, that's one thing we're all guaranteed. We're all going to have our death day, right? But
Yeah.
I call it Freedom Day.
That's
Like,
beautiful.
yeah, I like to call it Freedom Day. So, it was just this calm that came over me. And then I called in, spirit, I called in everybody I knew who was on the other side to help anybody to show up. Michael Tomorrow's dog was the first one to show up. They were friends, and she was a great spirit. And when she shows up, she usually shows up to me with a yellow flower in her mouth. It's really quite beautiful.
Mm.
And so when I called for Michael, he eventually came and helped, with the crossing. Because what ended up happening is we ended up being able to get Kai to his favorite spot on the terrace outside. And he was able to get up one time to look up into the sky, reminding us to always look up, reminding us that nature is, around us, and we should, be always so grateful for the beauty that surrounds us. And I said to him, I said, oh, honey, I said, rest, rest. We love you so much. I said, I am you and you are me through all eternity, because we're all one,
Yeah.
and we could never be apart, you know. And and so we were there for hours with him, right? And so I said to my husband, I'm just going to run to the restroom. I didn't want to leave, but I whispered in his ear and I had told him, all the things I wanted to say to him. And I told him I loved him and I said, I'll be right back. All I wanted to do was just run to the restroom and come back. And as soon as I went, Michael came in and my husband could feel him and he said, well, Kai, are you ready? He goes, she had to get up and go to the bathroom sometime because Kai didn't want to leave with me there. He
Yep.
wanted to wait until I was gone. And I'm sure you hear many stories like that, where
Always.
animals do not want their, person being present at the last breath. So it was just enough time, for me to go to the bathroom. And then my husband called me, and I was on my way back. And he said, he's gone, you know.
That has happened with so many humans too,
Yeah.
in my readings where they're like, I literally just went to the bathroom and he passed. I was
Yeah.
there the whole day. And that was
Yeah.
when he passed. And a lot of them have a lot of regret about that. And I tell them that's
Yeah.
the soul want didn't, for whatever reason, didn't want you to see their last breath. They wanted you to remember
Yes.
them alive. They didn't
Yeah.
want that to be your last memory,
Yeah.
even though the passing can be very peaceful.
Yeah.
And, I know when I had to put my cat down at Christmas, it
Mm.
was the most peaceful. I mean, it took 2 seconds. It was like,
Yeah.
she said, I'm going to administer the medicine, and it took less than a minute. And so it was peaceful. And and in that moment, it was okay. Like for me, it was good. It was
Yeah.
good to see that it was just switching over to another dimension. It was just that easy. And yes, it
Yeah.
was absolutely heart wrenching. And also, it was like literally, he just drifted on, and it was into bliss, and that's okay. And I'm sure it would have been the same, but for whatever reason, the soul says, "Now's my time to go."
Yes. Yes. And that was what was perfect for us.
Hmm.
And everybody has to, I'd love for whoever's watching just to know that, you're always in the right place. It's always perfect, even though it might not feel like it. But there's a bigger story that sometimes we're not privy to seeing those pages quite yet. And so, we just got to trust, and have that, faith, right?
I have
Have
trust
trust with
tattooed
that.
on my wrist. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, normally I ask my guests to just kind
Okay.
of leave us with final words of what do you want people to know? That might have been it right there, but, um, it's a broad question, and I just like you to answer it whatever comes to mind, which is, sometimes it's if you what's the one thing that you want people to know?
That you are love and you are loved. And I know people sometimes feel like they're alone, but you're never alone. And you're always being watched, and you super, super amazing team of guides. And they want you to reach out to them. They want you to talk to them. They want you to hear them and listen to them through your heart. And don't be fearful, to let it in, you know. And and you are a beautiful being, each and every one of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. That's so beautiful. Rochelle Vallese, thank you so much for joining me today on Magic Israel. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you, and thank you for sharing your energy, your time, and your insights with us. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure.